From the BBC World Service, in association with ABC and Akashvani, this is Stumped.
Hello and welcome to Stumped, your intercontinental hit of news, features and debate from the quirky world of cricket. I'm Alison Mitchell in London and had a very exciting day this week when I dropped my parents off to a Buckingham Palace garden party. My dad was recognised for his long-standing volunteer work in the local council, so that meant a new hat for my mum and a really proud day for them all.
Fantastic, Ali. Brett Sprigg here at the ABC in Sydney, once again filling in the chair for Jim Maxwell this week. It's hard to know where to look because there is so much happening across a number of cricket nations. So we'll do our best to get across it all in this program. Maybe I'll just stop talking and let us move on to all the stuff we have to talk about.
Good to see you, Spriggy, again. And of course, congratulations to your father, particularly in the whole family, Alison. Well done.
Thank
you. I'm Charu Sharma for Akashvani, and I'm in Dubai once again this week following the IPL here. And what a shame that some of the big teams seem to now not be in contention for Final Four spot, including, of course, CSK, who are right at the bottom. And, of course, KKR as well, thanks to CSK, now no longer for a place in the Final Four.
Good to have you both with us for this week, and we have got a lot to get stuck into. Coming up, we're going to hear from the England women's head coach, newly appointed Charlotte Edwards, on the significance of the ECB appointing a first ever national women's selector. But first of all, we ask, what next for India men's test team after Rohit Sharma announced his retirement from the longest form of the game? Well, Rohit's decision followed speculation in the Indian media that he would be replaced as test captain for the upcoming tour of England. He won half of his 24 tests as captain and reached the World Test Championship final in 2023, but he also lost the Border Gavaskar Trophy in Australia and was skipper for last year's historic, wrong end of history, 3-0 home defeat by New Zealand. Rohit will, though, continue as India's ODI captain, and of course you'll remember that he retired from T20 internationals after winning the T20 World Cup last year, which was another huge accolade for him and Team India. Charu, let me start with you then. First of all, what do you make of Rohit's decision to retire and also the timing of it?
I think it's about time. I must quickly confess that Rohit, I thought when he started his career, was one of the finest test match prospects because he used to play so straight and he had so much time and, classically an elegant batsman. And yet, because India is not quite focusing as much on test match cricket as I suppose the nations would like India to, he switched to becoming much more of a one-day player, as in a white ball player. And that's where all the fame and the glory is. And maybe that hurt his test prospects to a bit because he was in and out of the team for many years. Eventually, of course, he led the team, and many say he's a wonderful leader, very calm, knows the game extremely well, like so many of the players do anyway. And I did think that because of his average form, going to England might have hurt him even more, and he might have had to go out on a bit of a downslide, fading away rather than on a bit of a high, because England can be a little rough. And which is why I suppose he must have decided, and of course, perhaps a chat with the board as well. The board saying, where are you going with all of this? There's so many hungry young players and talented players in India that might have hastened Rohit's decision to not only not be captain of India, but stop playing test match cricket. However, he has said that he'll continue one-day internationals, which is perhaps now the least trying format of the game because there's plenty of time to play out your innings. It's not frenetic like T20 and certainly not as testing as test matches.
Yeah, there was a lot of speculation during the Border Gavaskar Trophy about Rohit's future, not least because of his form. And then he famously dropped himself for that decisive fifth test match. Did you feel then that that was the start of the writing really being on the wall? If you're leaving yourself out of the team, how much longer can you continue to lead them for?
Well, that's a pretty good point, isn't it? I think what also perhaps hurt them a lot more, him particularly and the Indian team, was the 0-3 loss to New Zealand back at home, because India have been so strong at home, and then to lose every single test match to New Zealand was very tough for a lot of Indian cricketers and fans. And of course, the new coach at that point of time got them compared to also swallow. Australia didn't go on too well. And as you mentioned, dropping himself or a test match, it was a very bold call and perhaps the correct call, not being in very good form at all. Australia can be very tough for those visiting from other nations. But it's not that he got more opportunities to play test match cricket in India thereafter. And now England would have been as tough. So pretty good time. And I think he's done very well. I think his fitness has not been fantastic. And maybe he's also decided he's not ready for the rigors of a 5-day match.
So what do you feel his legacy will be?
Well, this is going to sound a little rough. As a slight underachiever in red ball cricket, but a massive achiever in white ball cricket. A revered figure because of his success with Mumbai Indians, And of course, in white ball cricket, especially at the top, very, very aggressive, easy when it comes to hitting those big sixes. He turned out to be a big six-hitting man and therefore a big crowd favorite as well. I think his personality was pretty calm and cool, so he'll be remembered positively all the way through.
Yeah, he's always had that calm demeanour, in interviews and those media interactions that we've had with him, always came across as very, very calm. Brett, is it a good time, do you think, to have a new captain, the right time? I mean, a big tour of India coming up, so it's going to be a huge task for whoever gets the job now.
Look, I thought last year or before last summer, the World Gavaskar series, it seemed like it was a slightly tumultuous time to be unsure of the team's leadership then. Although Rohit missed the first test due to family reasons, he was, as you say, he didn't play in Sydney, dropped himself. And India kind of was competitive for much of that series, certainly early on, taking that 1-0 lead, despite all the questions around their best 11 and their leadership. That was just circumstances. I'm not sure why, given India hasn't played a test match since January, or indeed any international cricket since the Champions Trophy 2 months ago, while the IPL is going on, that this wouldn't be worked out sooner. There's still, 5 or 6 weeks before the England series, but I am curious as to why this couldn't have eventuated sooner, because certainly when I look back on the last summer in Australia, without being too unkind to Rohit, it did sometimes look like maybe there was a bit of disinterest. Of course, he just had a second child at home, so your mind is probably elsewhere. You could argue his fitness certainly wasn't probably at the ideal standard, and that's before you consider that he'd averaged just 10 in that format in the previous 12 months or so. And we were having these conversations about his future in Test cricket just then, like you said. So, yes, it's the right time. My only question is why so close to this England series and why not sooner?
Yeah, it's a question that's difficult to answer, really, isn't it? Often, a series happens and then a change will come fairly soon off the back of it. The question really is now who will take over. Of course, Jasprit Bumrah, stepped in and did very well, Charu, didn't he, in that BGT trophy? Is there any other option?
Pat Cummins is doing a pretty good job for Australia as a fast bowler, but conventionally, of course, fast bowlers have not been handed over captaincy because of just the rough nature of their work and the tiring nature of their work. So I don't think it's going to be Bumrah again. And even his fitness, by the way, isn't just a little bit of question. He's doing very well in the IPL, but will he hold up? Because he had a major back problem. So they'll probably lean once again onto somebody like Pant, who is in trouble in the IPL right now. But if he is preferred for the Test series in England, he has handled the job before. It could well be him. Or, of course, the man who would be king, the prince right now, Shubman Gill, is also in contention because his place is certainly guaranteed. It has to be somebody in very good form, that's for sure, because if your own form is a suspect, then when you get to captaincy, that might suffer even more. Those are the two front runners. There's a little bit of talk about KL Rahul as well, who has been so up and down for the past 2 or 3 years, has got so much criticism when his form was off, but he's in pretty good form now. And of course, is the senior player. So these are the three choices. If Pant can toe the line, sometimes he is not very establishment oriented, perhaps he would be first choice.
Yeah, I could almost see, Spriggy, your eyebrows raise when Charu mentioned Rishabh Pant as India Test captain.
I love that suggestion of Rishabh Pant. Yeah, indeed. I guess, look, around Shubman Gill, and it appears as though, there's a few indicators here that suggest he is the heir apparent. As you say, he's now an established member of that team, or he wasn't probably the past couple of years, but it probably is so more recently. I think I'm right in saying he hasn't captained a great deal at other levels. It's his second year in charge at the Gujarat Titans. He did captain India during a T20 series last year against Zimbabwe. And I understand if people sort of share those concerns re his lack of captaincy experience. But what I do love about Rishabh Pant is he does have a sort of a calm demeanour. You mentioned that's a great quality that Rohit Sharma had as a captain. And he appears, for the most part, quite a composed character. And even if his numbers don't really back it up, he's still quite technically solid, Shubman Gill. And I don't know why, but to me, that seems important. I want my captain to look assured and confident at the crease. But I guess most importantly, regarding the case for Shubman Gill, is he's only 25. So there's a potential long-term stability there. When you look at Rohit coming in after Virat Kohli, he's actually older than Virat. So there was never really a succession plan there. I remember people being surprised as well when Shubman Gill was named a vice captain in the white ball formats, but clearly his ascension to this role, if it is coming, has been sort of in the works for a little while. So if it is him, then good luck, Shubman, because it'll be a tough series first up. But Rishabh Pant's a very good shout as well.
calm one thing. He's certainly not quiet behind the stumps, is he?
No
One of
one's
the
ever
most
quiet
chirpy
behind the
keepers
stumps.
going. I mean, I just thought Jasprit Bumrah led magnificently during that series in Australia. Whether, again, you look at it and you're right, Charu has had injury issues, but I feel like the question of can a fast bowler be captain sort of no longer exists in cricket. I think, you've got Ben Stokes short as an all-rounder captain, Pat Cummins captaining Australia. But Bumrah showed that you absolutely can do it. Probably, leaning on some others in the team as well. And if you needing to take a bit of a break on and off the field every now and again. But it's going to be intriguing to see who does step up and lead India in what is a massive series coming up.
From the BBC World Service, this is Stumped on Akashvani.
Finally on Stumped, there's a big season ahead for the England women's team with a home series against West Indies and India before the World Cup takes place later this year. The England Wales Cricket Board are set to appoint a national selector for the women's team for the very first time. And they've also recently named star all-rounder Nat Sciver-Brunt as their new captain. I've been catching up with the new head coach, Charlotte Edwards. It's all changed in that team, and asked her how pivotal her new captain will be.
Yeah, I'm very excited about, Natalie's appointment, and no doubt she'll lead from the front in everything she does, as she's done as a player so far. But I think she'll, really empower the other people around her. I'm very excited to get working with that.
There's due to be a new national selector for England women as well, mirroring the men's role for the first time in this professional era. How will that work? How will it help you?
Yeah, I think it's just an independent voice for us that we've never had before to maybe check and challenge, the selection, and I guess really help us have another person looking at, the county games that are going on currently. And a different view. I think it's, I think it's an exciting new role and one I'm looking forward to working with.
Now, fitness and or agility and athleticism, you might say, was questioned during that Ashes whitewash. How would you address that as coach?
Well, I mean, the players came back from Australia. They've worked really hard. I've been very impressed with fitness standards so far. But as I said to the players, I don't want this to be a talking point moving forward. And I know everyone is really invested in that part of the game. It's one part of performance, and we know, we need to make some improvements and believe we're moving in the right direction.
Are you seeing signs already that you're heading in that direction?
Yeah, absolutely. As I said, the standards and what I've seen, the testing has been excellent, and the effort the players are showing, and now it's about getting out on the field now and putting that into performances.
Big year with a World Cup coming up in the autumn, and there's a World Cup in England T20 in 2026. Is that more the target rather than the World Cup in India?
They're both very much the target. I think, I wouldn't have taken on this job if I didn't think we could win both, and with the talent we've got good prep going into the one in India in October, and we're very much looking forward, and that being our main focus at the moment.
Well, that was England women's head coach Charlotte Edwards. We of course had her on Stumped alongside Julan Goswami. She had great success there, and now she's taken on the England job. Brett, she spoke then about the significance of having a national selector for England women for the very first time. In Australia, you've had Sean Flegler for some time. Do you think that has helped the Aussies?
I can't believe this is new ground for England because, yes, Australia's had Sean Flegler for all that time, I think since 2014. And in fact, he wasn't even on the first panel. So I want to say even before that, since 2012 or so, we've had a full selection panel. You need to only look at the Australia's success in that time, which can't be entirely attributed to having selectors, but it speaks to a higher level of professional understanding. You've got so many players these days, so many high-performance pathways and domestic competitions, different formats. The sheer breadth of that deserves proper selectors and a proper system. The coach will generally always be a part of that, but as Charlotte Edwards says, it's just it's an independent voice to help along with these things. Sometimes women's cricket can be accused of being a bit of a closed shop, and you've got coaches that know players really well and whatever else. You've got an independent voice here, which will certainly bolster that. So, I look forward to seeing how it all works out for England.
Yeah, there's always some input from a coach, isn't there? But you're right, just having that independence seems to be all important, doesn't it? Particularly in this new professional era that England are going through in the domestic level with the new Tier 1, Tier 2 structure.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, time will tell whether it's effective for England. I can't see a way in which it wouldn't be a better thing overall in having that there. But I'm keen to ask you, Ali, about Nat Sciver-Brunt as the new captain and whether you're looking forward to seeing her in that role permanently in a couple of weeks' time against the West Indies.
Yeah, I really am looking forward to seeing how she takes on the role now she's got the reins, because she's captained the side a handful of times, but in circumstances which, are never ideal when you are just thrust into it. But, it is different when you have been given the job. The team is then yours to mould, and she's a very, non-demonstrative personality. She's a very, very calm persona. So it'd be interesting to see how she really rallies a team, what her sort of team talks are like, for example, which she's worked with Charlotte Edwards at Mumbai Indians. So that relationship is very much in place. And she's someone who I feel leads by example with her cricket. So the key will be, can she and Charlotte Edwards together get this team up to a point where they're able to win and win ruthlessly. And Charu, a lot of that, as I've mentioned to Charlotte in that interview, is going to be around the athleticism, the agility of the team. But you've spoken quite a bit about, improvements in fitness amongst the India women's team. And how significant do you think that's going to be as a factor if we throw ahead to the autumn and a Women's World Cup in Indian conditions?
Extremely, because, we're talking about the England team not being fit enough or athletic enough. You can imagine how far back down the Indian team goes in that regard. But of course, the Australians, the English team, the South Africans as well, apart from all the rest of their skills, also do very well in women's cricket, particularly because of their better athletic levels. Now, with a lot of the younger generation taking to women's cricket, they're learning to be fit and athletic a lot earlier than the previous generation. And that's a big plus because it affects everything. The younger generation has no fear. And I have no doubt that alone will make a very big difference. India have been very close to winning a big title. And this athleticism factor alone can be a big help in finally achieving that dream.
Home World Cup for India. It's going to be a huge tournament come October for them. There'll be plenty of expectation, what with all the hype that's built up around the WPL, the rise of women's cricket. It's a very exciting time. Well, that's all we've got time for on this week's Stumped for Akash Varney. Don't forget you can follow us on X. We're at BBCWS Sport and use the hashtag BBC Stumped. And check us out on YouTube as well by going to the BBC World Service on YouTube. My thanks to Charu Sharma, Brett Sprigg, and to all of you for listening. Speak to you next week. Bye-bye.
Stumped is a BBC Sport production for the BBC World Service in association with ABC and Akash Varney.